Hey makeup friends! Today we're going to be testing out the Seamless Skin Foundation from Lisa Eldridge. I'm going to show you it in application, we're going to do a transfer test, and a wear test. So let's get into this. As always, I want to start off by welcoming you to my channel. My name is Kara. I am 41 years old, a working mother of two, and I just happen to love makeup. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It really helps my channel grow. We just hit 12,000 subscribers. My mind is blown, and I cannot wait to see where this channel goes. For today's video, as I said, we're going to be taking a dedicated look at the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation. This is available through her website and it retails for 44 Great British pounds, or translate that to $61 US, or I have to look, $77 Canadian. I do live in Canada, so let me give you a little bit of information about the shipping and the customs fees. So I paid $77 Canadian for the foundation itself. Shipping was $21 US, which translates to $26 Canadian. And then I got one of those just dreaded emails from DHL asking me to pay the customs fees, which totaled just about $35. So all in, this foundation has set me back a total of $138 Canadian. The shipping was very fast to me, everything was packaged very nicely and secure, didn't have any issues in that regard. But for $138 total price, I have high expectations for this foundation. So let's get into what the foundation's claims are, and then we'll move right on into the application. So taking a look at the Lisa Eldridge website, the claims for the foundation is that it has a buildable medium coverage, that it's skin friendly, and that it leaves the skin with a natural skin-like finish. It also claims that it blends out effortlessly and that it is self-setting. We're going to test that later on in this video. There are 40 shades available and the bottle does contain 1 fluid ounce of product. As well, this product is fragrance, alcohol, and talc free, and it claims to be skin friendly. Now for your own reference, I picked up shade 6, which is described as being for light skin with gold highlights. And you can see from the comparisons that this does look very reminiscent of MAC's NC20, which is the shade I typically wear. Now, finally, just for your own reference, before we get into the application, I am 41 years old, so I do have fairly mature skin. I do undergo Botox every few months, so the wrinkling and creasing across my forehead has largely been taken care of by that. I also have very normal skin, although now that we're well into November, our heater is on all of the time, and so I am getting drier than I typically do the rest of the year. And most of my dryness tends to center around my nose for whatever reason, and that's where I'll see a lot of flakiness, but the rest of my face is pretty much still normal. I also don't have very reactionary skin, so it's not particularly sensitive. It really doesn't experience any breakouts or anything of that sort. It's the rare product that will make it angry, and typically that falls to sunscreen. My skin, for whatever reason, just hates sunscreen. All right, now that we have that information, let's get into the application. Okay, so I have already primed my face, so we're ready to go in with the foundation. For primer today, I used my standby here, the Dior Backstage Primer. I've talked about this before, but I like using this when I'm testing out foundations because it doesn't add any glow or mattify my skin, and it really doesn't alter my skin in any way, which means it doesn't alter the foundation. So that's why I have chosen that one. But with that out of the way, we are ready to go in with the foundation. So on the website, it does suggest starting with very thin layers and then building up to the level of coverage that you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add 1 pump onto my sponge here. First of all, I have to show you the sponge because it is adorable. It's part of the ColourPop Nightmare Before Christmas series. I, for the life of me, do not remember what that dog's name is, but it's super cute at any rate. So I'm gonna just dot this. We're going to remember to just do one side of my face at first, just to see the before and after. I will say that I'm very pleased with the shade match. I wasn't entirely sure if I should go for 6 or for 8, but I'm glad I went for 6 because it's blending in perfectly with the rest of my body, skin, I guess. You know what I'm trying to say. All right. Oh, how did I get it on my eyelid? How? How did that happen? Huh. Curious. Okay. So let's just leave it at that as the very first layer. And you can see it is very, very skin-like. And it has a very natural finish to it, which I really like. I don't mind a bit of glow now and then, but sometimes glowy foundations are altogether too much for me and it just ends up looking oily. And this one is not falling victim to that at all. In fact, if I didn't know that I had foundation on, especially across the forehead, I really wouldn't be able to see any difference or pick up on the fact that there is something on this side that's missing over here. And I mean, my mirror is sitting a ways away from me, but I can still see like little freckles poking through. There's one down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and build it up with a second layer just to see what the coverage becomes and whether or not that finish changes at all. So let's go ahead and do that. I might do a third just to see, but I'm starting to see a little bit more coverage building up. Obviously, that makes sense. And now I can see the finish, which is just slightly dewier than my natural skin. I can really see that building up over here. So I'm gonna go ahead, apply one more, and then we're gonna leave it, and then I'll even things out. So last layer, here we go. All right, so there we are. That is 3 thin layers applied to this half of my face. And again, I mean, I think it's just looking very, very natural. There is a little bit of glow that could simply be because it's wet on my face right now. This does claim to be self-setting, so we're going to test that out in a minute, but initial application, this is a beautiful foundation. It really does just look like my skin, but the skin tone is evened out, minor imperfections are covered up, and I feel like I could go in with yet another layer and it still wouldn't look cakey or like I'm wearing makeup. Now I am just gonna bring my mirror a little bit closer to me to see if there's any like telltale bounce marks on the skin. And I'm happy to report that there are not. And I will come in a bit closer to show you, but I'm also not seeing it like gathering in weird places or lying strangely on my skin at all. So let me get up close and I'll show you how it looks in the crevices of my face, shall we say. All right, there we go with my ring light on its lowest setting. I do have one little side light on, but it's about as dark as I can make it in this room. And you can see that it just sits nicely. It hasn't really gathered anywhere where I don't want it to be. Even in the folds of the nose, I'm not seeing any issues there. So this blends out really nicely. And I'm really liking how it looks on my skin. Okay, so now I have foundation all over, and I do have my concealer on as well, which I filmed for another video. It's a battle of the 2 e.l.f. camo concealers. So on this side I have the matte, on this side I have the hydrating. I did have to go in and add just a little bit more foundation over here because the matte concealer was considerably lighter than the hydrating version, despite having the same name, but that's okay. I go into it in the other video. So because this was a fresher application, at least in this area, I have gone ahead and set this side down with a little bit of powder. I'm using the Il Maquillage Loose Translucent Powder, but this side I do not have any powder on, save for directly under my eyes for the concealer. So I've got my phone, so I'm just gonna pretend to talk on it. Sorry if I'm really out of breath, it's because I have a head cold, which is starting to work its way down into my chest, which is not fun. And it's just affecting my breathing. So here we go. This is what the phone looks like when there is no powder. So very little transfer. And even in feeling my skin, there is a little bit of tackiness still left, but nothing major, and I don't see anything picking up on my fingers, nor do I see any like imprints of my fingers on my face. So I'm just gonna go ahead, wipe the phone off again. This is where boobs are really helpful because I always just rub it against my boobs. Anyways, clean again. And then I expect that we're not gonna have a ton of transfer either from this side because there's hardly any here, and this one is set with powder. So having yammered for that length of time, there we go. And again, virtually no transfer at all. So I love that. I am going to add just a little bit of powder simply because that is just how I roll. But I am going to do a check-in at the end of the day to show you how this is held up throughout the day and to really see if the price point is worth it. I will see you then. Here we are, about 8.5 hours after I applied it. Let's take a look and see how it has worn throughout the day. So I've zoomed you in, not quite as close as we can get, but I think we're good. And I have my magnified mirror in front of me just to take a look. So let's start with this area. Honestly, I don't see any signs of wear. I truly don't. Like, there's usually some breaking apart of the foundation across this area, and then there's usually some signs of wear in here where things almost look like kind of like slid down the face and sort of pooled together. I don't see it. There's maybe like a tiny little bit right in this area, but otherwise, I don't see any signs of wear across my forehead. It's actually like shockingly impressive. Okay. So then there's usually some breaking apart across here and definitely on my nose. I can see where like the little dry patches on my nose are. So those look quite flaky. It's gonna look flaky whether I'm wearing foundation or not, to be honest. That's just what happens to me in the winter. But otherwise, again, things have held up really well. I'm not seeing any modeling across this area here. Sometimes it almost starts to look like I'm like a dappled pony. And I'm not seeing that with this, so A for that. There is wear across here in my nose and around my mouth. I've been blowing my nose, I've been rubbing my nose, I've eaten, I've wiped my mouth. That's all natural signs of wear to me, and I don't ever fault a foundation for that because it just happens. It's friction and I've wiped it away. So I'm not upset about that at all. But if I look at like the top of my nose, even that is holding up pretty well. Like, let's just ignore the tip of my nose, shall we? And like this part, like this little square in here, it just is what it is. But like across the top, nothing is separated apart. There is obviously disturbance across here. I just said we were going to ignore that part, so let's leave that alone. And then if I look at like my chin, again, I'm not seeing any real signs of wear. Like, I'm actually really shocked at how well this foundation has held up. So let's back it up a little bit and I'll give you my final thoughts on this one. Okay, so for final thoughts, I want to start off by talking about the packaging, then we'll talk about the application and then the wear time, and I'll round it out with whether or not I think this is a must-have. So for packaging, I think it looks really cool. Like, it looks a little bit space agey or something. I'm not quite sure. But this is the only side that has a beveled edge on it. So it sits on my table nicely like this. However, my holder for all of my foundations, it needs to sit vertically. So I would have really liked if this had been a flat edge so that it could stand. It would be a little bit like prone to tipping over just because of how like pointed it is, but it would at least, you know, inside the holder with the little walls around it, it would have been fine. So I feel like I almost have to keep the box because the box is set up in such a way that the bottle just fits nicely right inside of it. However, I have a bunch of products. I'm always like messing up my desk and then having to clean it all back up again and all of that. So I don't like to have individual products just sitting around because I do rotate through my foundations and I'm not going to wear it every single day, day after day. So that's just a minor gripe on my part, but I would have liked to have seen a beveled edge on the bottom as well, maybe a little bit less elongated just so that it could stand up vertically. Very minor point, but I just wanted to make that known. Okay. So then for the actual application of it, I really do like that you can build up the coverage and it never really got to the point of looking cakey. As you saw, I did 3 layers. And from the first to the third, I think it all evened out really nicely. And again, it just sat so beautifully on the skin. It never felt heavy. It still doesn't feel heavy even 8 hours after wearing. I don't feel like I have anything on my skin at all. I really love the finish on this foundation, and I really do like the coverage of it. I prefer a more lightweight coverage kind of foundation, so the fact that this is buildable really works for me. If you want a lot of coverage, I don't think that this is the product for you, if only because, yes, you can build it up, but it comes with a hefty price tag, so you would go through this product so much faster if you were trying to build up to a medium full coverage level. So if you like the skin tints, if you like a lighter coverage, this is one that you might really enjoy, but if you do look for full coverage, I would suggest looking elsewhere. So then, that brings us to the wear time. It wears absolutely beautifully. This is a gorgeous foundation from the moment you apply it to the moment you take it off. So I don't really feel like I have anything more to add to that, except to tie it up with a little bow. Do I think that this is a must-have? For Canadians, probably not. At the price point that I paid, which totaled, what, 130 some odd dollars in order to get this from England to my home and pay all the customs and shipping and all of that, it just isn't worth it to me. Even though I really do love the foundation, I also love other foundations that don't approach anywhere near the $100 mark, let alone go north of it. So it's really going to come down to your own budget. It's really going to come down to whether or not you're willing to pay import fees and shipping, all of those kind of costs. If you live in the UK, this might be much more palatable for you, but as you saw, the price basically doubled for me trying to get it to Canada. So that's where I start to draw a bit of a line. Even though it's beautiful, I don't normally pay over $100 for foundation. So I'm going to cherish this one, and I am very, very happy that it has worked out as well as it has, but I really don't see that I'm going to repurchase this once I get through it. So for what that's worth, there you have my thoughts. So with that, I'm going to wrap the video up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to share and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.